Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andy Glover.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me in the back? Is it hot enough in here for you? All right, so Pete, you had actually given me a title. What was the original title of this?
What every mobile developer and manager should know.
Right, so what every mobile developer and manager should know, plus the trends in mobile performance. That's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. So my name's Andy Glover. I'm with App47. I'm the CTO. We are a mobile applications management company, and what that means, or how we differentiate from our competitors, is that we provide three things: build, manage, and deploy. And so with App47, you can create a branded app store, and you can put in there apps that you build, or you can pull in public apps, and you can set up deployment strategies, if you will, and who gets what app on what device. And then you can gather analytics on those apps. So we provide the full lifecycle management of apps. And so what I want to talk to you tonight is two trends that we see with respect to mobile performance. And those two trends, real briefly, are people want to see or want to know, understand, and gather increased visibility into how their app behaves, and they want to understand the lifetime value of a user. And so when it comes to visibility, real briefly, what that means is that they want to know how people are leveraging their app across a wide variety of environments, across a huge array of different devices, and then across a huge, wide, large audience of users using their app in different ways. And so how you gather those particular metrics are two things: logging and events. And there are a number of companies, I believe Dynatrace just kind of showed some of that. Obviously App47 does that, and there are other, the Snap, I was going to say Snaplicious, sorry, Snaperific. You guys use Flutter, right? And so the idea here is that using various logging techniques and event-based APIs, you can start to gather that visibility. So what that means is you can start to gather how the app behaves in the field, right? So, what we're seeing is that companies, first of all, you cannot test every combinatoric of apps, especially how many people here are using Android or developing for Android? One person? Is this a mobile development users group or what? All right, so 2 people, 3 people, thanks. All right, so Android fragmentation, right? There's so many different device profiles, different operating systems in terms of versions. And then obviously iOS is a bit more control, but what this means is that in your testing, you're probably not going to be able to capture all these different environments. So the best thing you can start to do is add logging, so you can start to understand what the heck happens in the field when someone fires up my app on some Android device that I had no idea existed, right? Event-based logging or APIs, here what we're talking about, and again, Dynagility kind of showed it, or Dynagility. It's actually an existing name. It's already taken. Sorry. Dynagility is a company local. So Dynatrace. So what we mean by events here is, let's say a user clicks on a button or executes a transaction or views some page, in your case. What's going on? How long did it take? What's the actual experience here? And what's key when you start talking about these metrics is how you can marry that to real data in the sense of what devices are they on, what OSs in terms of versions, whether it be Android or iOS. As we talked about with Android, you have a huge fragmentation in terms of devices and versions of OSs. As you all showed as well, geographically speaking, we've seen use cases where an app works fine, let's say here in the US, but then someone fires it up in Greece and it no longer works because of some translation issue. So you've got OSs, device types, geographic location, and then most importantly, app versions. So when you think about logging and events, you want to be able to tie these back to these different facets or dimensions of your app. And with respect to that is you can't test everything. So go ahead and just assume that you're not going to be able to catch everything. I mean, we've actually known this for a myriad years, right? Mobile doesn't necessarily differentiate that in any way. You can't test everything. So at least prepare for it. Assume that someone somewhere on the earth, because mobile apps are ubiquitous, you don't know who your users are and where they're going to get it, just assume it's going to crash. So put in the proactive logging and the event-based API so you can start to understand how the heck is this thing being used in the field. And what's also interesting is you can start to tie this back to devices. You can start to do real-time coverage, right? So if you actually engage in user activity testing or user experience testing or QA through the usage of custom app stores, if you will, again, that's something we provide. You can start to track what user on what device is doing what with your app, right? So there's the marriage of all this data. So I have a user, let's say I'm using something like U-Test, which is like a crowdsourcing testing, which again, we're also seeing an uptick in when it comes to mobile testing. I have a user in Greece that's using a pre-production version of my app. They're on iOS 5.01 on a iPhone 4G, whatever, 4S. And it crashes when they hit this screen, but I don't see this on other versions of my app, on other device profiles, et cetera, et cetera. So there's the real marriage of this data, and this is what we're seeing. Increasingly, people want this data. You do not get this data for free. You have to start using tools for this, right? And then part of this is this notion of being proactive. Assume your app's going to crash. You can't test everything. So the best thing you can do at that point is be proactive and actually know in advance, I know that someone on an Android, whatever, Galaxy 4, running this version of my app will probably crash if they're running in Taiwan, right? We actually see this now increasingly, especially in the government. We have a client that actually has officers that are using their app and they want this proactivity so they can be on the ball. When someone calls up and says, hey, the app's not working, they can say, yes, sir, we know. We already know it's not working on your iPad. We're on it, right? So there's this whole notion of not wanting to be caught with your pants down or your shirt off, whatever it be. All right, so that's the first one, visibility. The second one is understanding the lifetime value of a user. The app stores right now will tell you downloads, right? And that's the kind of the metric we're gauging the industry off. Instagram had 100 million downloads in 2 weeks. Big effing deal, right? What really people want to know is this. This guy uses the app 4 times a day, but that girl only used it once, and that guy over there only uses it once a week. You're busy. It's a great talk, isn't it? Tell them that. So the key thing here is that understanding the lifetime value of a user isn't the metric you can get from, let's say, iTunes or Google Play, which just tells you had 100 million downloads. That doesn't matter if you had 100 million downloads and only one person actually uses your app day to day, right? So what this boils down to is people want to know what their active users are. And this is daily active users, weekly active users, and monthly active users. These are stats in terms of how often does this person on this device fire up my app? Because the real value is this person uses my app daily, right? If the person fires it up once and goes away, there's a metric right there, right? Obviously your app sucked. They tried it once and went away, and I was looking in that direction, not that your app sucks. So the key thing here is understanding the lifetime value. When I get a download, let's say I ask the person for 99 cents to download my app, but if they only use the app one time, chances are they'll probably never download one of my apps again. If I've got ads, which we're seeing more and more app strategies are not, let me sell you my app for $1, it's let me give you my app for free, and hopefully you'll click on an ad. And this is where these metrics come in really important. How often does someone fire up my app and look at my pages, and are they clicking on my ads? I want high active users, monthly, weekly, daily. And the key here is churn, right? How many people downloaded my app? 100 million. How many people are actually using it? 25. There's an indication of churn. This is telling you a lot about your app. Obviously, no one's using it. So it's who stays, who leaves. These questions can't be answered by default, and that's why there's a vendor market being created in existence. Obviously, we're in it. There are other companies in it that are answering these questions for you. And what it's really telling you is your level of engagement. Successful apps have a high level of engagement, right? Angry Birds has 100 million downloads, active users, probably whatever 1 minus 100 million is, right? 999, you know? I mean, because it's actively engaging. This is the key stat. I told you I'd be quick because we're running over, right?
No, you're good. You're good. No, you're good.
All right, so I need to like eat up 10 minutes.
No, you got 5 minutes.
So, the two things you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about mobile performance and what we're seeing an increasing demand for. First one is visibility. How will you get that visibility when your app is deployed? You can't get it for free. Apple and Android don't offer these things, so you need to look at additional libraries and whatnot. And then last but not least, the lifetime value of a user. Remember, the app stores themselves will tell you downloads. That means nothing. It just means someone put your app on your phone. If they never used it, they're useless, right? I mean, unless they bought it, obviously, but they'll never come back and buy it again. So what you want to know is active users, and what that means, Dynatrace kind of showed it, right? It's someone actually using your app, doing something. You can gather that through logging. You can gather that through events. You can gather that through session data. It doesn't matter, but this is very key. I'm with app 47. You have any questions? Yes.
Do you log any events when people are offline? Is that something possible?
So, and there's actually a question related to performance with the agent. So, in our case, yes, if you're quote-unquote offline, meaning you're not. So the question was, do we log events if you're offline? And I'm taking that to be if you're not on a network.
Like you're just, you're
like on an airplane?
Well, yeah, whatever.
Certainly. So there are different strategies for gathering metrics. We happen to be one that has an agent. So there's an agent that's actually caching that data. So if the person's in airplane mode and they do something, we can tell you how many times they use it in airplane mode, how many times they click this button, whatever you want to know.
The next time they get online,
next time they get online, it pushes all that data to us.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any feedback from the end customers who are using these apps on the care, whether they're being profiled or their app usage is getting metrics? It's pretty standard, but I'm wondering if you've seen any sensitivity from it from the end customers?
Certainly, and that's a hot button issue, mobile privacy. In our case, we market to enterprises, and so these are enterprise apps that the end users already kind of like agreed to a private policy. But if you are concerned about that, you need to be aware of the private policy of the library you're using. So in case of app 47, the data that we gather in your app is not sold to anybody, it's your data. Your end users, you probably need to let them know that in terms of, hey, we're gathering data on you, but we're not selling it. If you use a library like Flurry, that's how Flurry makes money. They sell the data to other third parties. So if you are, let's say Steve has apps that market, let's say to children, he needs to be very aware, which he already does, of course, that, hey, Princess PhD is gathering this data on you, and I'm selling this to third parties. So if you are looking at gathering metrics or analytics on your end users for your public apps, you need to be very, very aware of this because it's a hot button issue. Pete and I spent 2 days on Capitol Hill talking to congressmen and senators and even the president's advisors about this. And so I can only caution you to be very, very cognizant of the metrics you're gathering and let your users know. I think you'll see some changes in the future in terms of how apps indicate the level of data they gather and what they do with that data. Yes, sir?
This is standard for number 47.
47 is IQ on a touchpad. So this is App IQ. That's a touchpad right there? Right? No, it's not. Yes. 3, 6, 9. No, that's not a touchpad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is the pound. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Anyways, it's IQ. Yes.
As a percentage of your total revenue, not your revenue, but let's say a developer in the app space, what percentage of revenue would you expect that we should allocate for services like yourself?
100%. That's a really good question.
Don't look at me.
I was looking actually above you. That's a good question. So I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. There's my pants down.
I say on the record sales for 47, I say it totally depends on if you're building B2C apps and it's advertising tools or Google Play is going to be completely different than something that's just based in the enterprise, obviously. All of this tracking is very important, but if the example you mentioned is a good one, if you're in a DoD situation where you've got to make sure that whatever 3-star general, his app works perfectly, and or you know when it's going to fail and why it failed and why it crashed, it's probably of utmost importance to allocate a lot of money towards knowing that information so that person is going to say. So it really just depends on the situation. I don't know that.
Could you hear that?
Not exactly.
All right, so I'll summarize. It depends. Classic consultant. But as Dave was mentioning, it just depends on your end user. So in the case of if you're in a DoD app, you have a general or whoever is some officer that needs immediate feedback, you might want to spend probably a little bit more than if you are, let's say, a consumer-based app and you really don't care if Android crashes. So it depends. But it's definitely not 100%.
99.
99, 98.7. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. You said you had an agent-based technology for, I guess that runs on your different models to collect offline data. What's your overhead?
It's very, very minimal. So our docs actually have the numbers. I won't quote them because they're actually getting better. But it's a minimal overhead. You, as I'm sure I'm speaking for them as well. The cost is on startup because we fire up. But every call you make, in our case, it's selective whether or not you choose to use our calls. Very minimal because we actually don't make a network connection there. We just cache it locally, and then when there's a downtime, we send it off. So we've gone to great efforts to make it as minimal as possible. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Actually, follow up with that question. In case of iOS, how do you run in the background? How do you collect the data?
Would you like to have a technical conversation afterwards? It's essentially a service in the back end, just like with Android. We can talk afterwards. I'm happy to show it to you. I think there was one more
Let's
question.
take the rest of the questions. Oh, do you have one more?
Question about whether you have the metrics. It seems like everything in your presentation was about a trend towards developing apps that are kind of click in. So you said if somebody buys your app, 1 million people buy your app but never use it. Well, if they buy it, then you're pretty solid. But if it's advertisement based, if your revenue stream is based on advertisement or based on usage somehow, so do you have metrics to support the fact that the majority of apps are now being written that are sort of fee per click or advertisement based? Or
Yeah. So as far as our consumer base goes, or our customer base goes, there's far more free-based apps that use kind of in-app purchases, whether those be ad clicks or whatnot. And the trend that we're seeing is that developers that sell their apps, let's say for $1.50 or whatever 99 cents, that's a one-time sale, and that's great. If you're Angry Birds and you make $100 million in 3 days, you're awesome. But that's like 1% of the market, right? Big thing here is app discovery. It's so hard to be discovered, as I'm sure anyone here can attest to that's put an app in an app store. So if the problem with a 99-cent model or $5 or $30 is it's a one-time sale. Once you've made that sale, you can never really make any money off that person again. There are far more lucrative opportunities to say, I got you for free. I can sell you in-app purchases. I can sell you bundles. I can do ads. It doesn't matter. In that case, you actually get a returning consumer, right? Someone that you can actually make more than 99 cents off. Maybe over the lifetime of that consumer, you may make $5, you may make $100. We have certainly seen that trend in more and more companies saying that's the way to go, rather than the one-time 99 cents. And again, that's why these metrics make so much sense, right? If you're at 99 cents and that's all you care about, then downloads probably does matter to you, right? But if you're not 99 cents, which again, more and more people are going to, then you couldn't care less about downloads. You want to know how often does this person use it, and then what are they doing when they use it? What's the experience? How often are they coming back? And obviously your goal is to make them come back as often as possible and click on stuff a lot, right? That's all about engagement. Thank you.
Excellent. Let's give him a hand.